It was a night shrouded in mystery and shadows when the old steam train, the Midnight Express, prepared for its final journey. The sky was an ominous blanket of dark clouds, hiding the moon and stars, casting a pall of unease over the small, desolate station. The train, a relic of a bygone era, stood on the tracks like a beast ready to awaken. Its black iron frame gleamed under the dim station lights, and wisps of steam curled lazily into the air. The passengers gathered on the platform were an odd mix of people, each with their own reasons for boarding this eerie train. Some were there out of necessity, others out of curiosity, and a few were simply running away from their pasts. Little did they know, this journey would intertwine their fates in ways they could never have imagined. As the clock struck midnight, a chill wind blew through the station, causing everyone to shiver. The conductor, a gaunt figure with hollow eyes, rang the bell, signaling that it was time to board. The passengers hesitated for a moment, a collective sense of dread hanging in the air, before they began to step onto the train. Among them was Emily, a young woman with long dark hair and a troubled past. She clutched a small suitcase tightly, her knuckles white. She had heard rumors about the Midnight Express, whispers of strange occurrences and vanishing passengers, but she had no other choice. She needed to get to the city, and this was the only train available. "A ticket, please," the conductor said in a voice that sent shivers down Emily's spine. She handed over her ticket, avoiding his gaze, and quickly made her way to her seat. The train's interior was just as eerie as the outside. The dimly lit corridors seemed to stretch endlessly, and the old creaky seats were covered in faded red velvet. Emily found her compartment and settled in, hoping for a quiet journey. She was unaware that this train held secrets far darker than she could ever imagine. Emily's compartment was surprisingly spacious, with 2 bunk beds and a small table by the window. She placed her suitcase on the lower bunk and sat down, staring out at the passing darkness. The train began to move, its wheels clattering against the tracks, a sound that echoed through the night like a sinister heartbeat. As she gazed out the window, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. She turned around, but the compartment was empty. Just her imagination, she thought, trying to calm herself. But the feeling of being watched persisted. Suddenly, the door to her compartment slid open. Emily jumped, her heart pounding. Standing in the doorway was a man in his late 40s, with a scruffy beard and a worn-out coat. He had a nervous look in his eyes. "Sorry to intrude," he said, his voice shaky. "Is this seat taken?" Emily shook her head, and the man quickly sat down opposite her. He looked around the compartment nervously, as if expecting something to jump out at him. "Are you okay?" Emily asked, her curiosity piqued. The man nodded, but didn't meet her eyes. Just nervous, that's all. This train, it's got a reputation, you know?" "A what kind of reputation?" Emily asked, though she had a sinking feeling she already knew the answer. People say it's haunted," the man whispered, leaning closer. Passengers have gone missing. Strange noises, shadows that move on their own, and sometimes people say they see ghosts." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. She wanted to laugh it off, but the man's fear was palpable. "Have you seen anything?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man shook his head. "No, but I've heard things. Voices, whispers in the night. And once I saw a shadow in my compartment, but there was no one there." Emily swallowed hard, her unease growing. She wanted to leave, but the train was already moving, taking her deeper into the unknown. As the train continued its journey through the night, the atmosphere grew heavier with each passing mile. The air inside the compartment seemed to thicken, making it hard to breathe. Emily and her new companion, whose name she learned was Jack, tried to make small talk, but the sense of dread hung over them like a dark cloud. It wasn't long before the first strange occurrence happened. Emily was dozing off when she heard a faint whisper. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but the whisper grew louder, more insistent. She opened her eyes and looked around the compartment, but there was no one else there. "Did you hear that?" she asked Jack, who was sitting across from her, wide-eyed and pale. He nodded, his face tense. It's starting, he muttered. The whispers. They come before they appear. Who? Emily asked, her voice trembling. The shadows, Jack replied. They come at night, whispering secrets, trying to lure you into the darkness. Emily shivered, her mind racing. She tried to ignore the whispers, but they grew louder, more insistent. She could hear fragments of sentences, disjointed words that made no sense. Join us. Come with us, forever. She covered her ears, but the whispers seemed to penetrate her very soul. Desperate, she looked at Jack, who was also covering his ears, his face contorted with fear. What do we do? She cried, her voice barely audible over the whispers. Jack shook his head, his eyes wide with terror. I don't know, he said. I don't know. The train continued to chug along, the whispers growing louder and louder, until it felt like they were coming from inside Emily's own head. She could feel her sanity slipping away, her grip on reality weakening. Just when she thought she couldn't take it anymore, the whispers stopped. The sudden silence was almost deafening. Emily slowly uncovered her ears, her heart pounding. Did it stop? As she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack nodded, his face pale. For now, he said. But they'll be back. They always come back. Emily felt a wave of despair wash over her. She didn't know how much more she could take. She needed to find a way off this train, but they were in the middle of nowhere, and there was no telling when they would reach the next station. Desperate for answers, Emily decided to confront the conductor. She left the compartment, with Jack close behind her, and made her way down the narrow, dimly lit corridor. The train creaked and groaned, as if it were alive, and shadows seemed to dance on the walls, mocking her. They finally reached the front of the train, where the conductor's cabin was located. Emily knocked on the door, her heart pounding in her chest. The door creaked open, and the conductor appeared, his hollow eyes staring at them. What is it? He asked, his voice cold and emotionless. We need to know what's going on, Emily said, trying to keep her voice steady. Why is this train haunted? What are those whispers? The conductor's expression didn't change. You shouldn't be asking questions, he said. Some things are better left alone. Please, Emily begged. We need to know. We need to understand. The conductor sighed, his shoulders sagging. Very well, he said. But you won't like the answers. He led them to a small dusty office at the back of the train. Inside, there were old photographs and newspaper clippings pinned to the walls, all of them detailing strange occurrences and disappearances associated with the Midnight Express. The train is cursed, the conductor said, his voice low. It was built on cursed land, and ever since, it's been plagued by spirits. They haunt the train, looking for souls to take with them into the afterlife. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. Is there any way to stop them? She asked. The conductor shook his head. No, he said. Once you're on this train, there's no escape. You just have to survive the journey and hope they don't take you. Emily's heart sank. She didn't know how much more she could take. She needed to find a way off this train, but the conductor's words offered no hope. As the train hurtled through the night, the sense of dread grew stronger. Emily and Jack returned to their compartment, their minds racing with the conductor's words. The shadows seemed to grow darker, and the whispers began again, more insistent than ever. Suddenly, there was a scream. Emily and Jack rushed out of their compartment and followed the sound to a nearby cabin. Inside, they found a young woman lying on the floor, her eyes wide with terror. She was dead. Another one, Jack whispered, his voice shaking. They've taken another one. Emily felt a wave of nausea wash over her. She didn't know how much more she could take. She needed to find a way to stop this, to save herself and the other passengers. As she looked around the cabin, she noticed something strange. There was a small old-fashioned locket lying on the floor next to the woman's body. Emily picked it up and examined it closely. Inside, there was a faded photograph of a young girl. "Do you think this has something to do with the curse?" she asked Jack. He shrugged. Maybe, he said. We need to find out more." Determined to uncover the truth, Emily decided to search the train for more clues. She and Jack began to explore the other compartments, looking for anything that might help them understand the curse and find a way to stop it. As they searched the train, Emily and Jack found themselves in an old storage room filled with dusty boxes and forgotten belongings. They sifted through the piles of junk, hoping to find something useful. In one of the boxes, Emily found an old leather-bound diary. She opened it and began to read, her heart pounding with anticipation. The diary belonged to a woman named Sarah, who had traveled on the Midnight Express many years ago. Her entries detailed strange occurrences and eerie experiences similar to what Emily and the other passengers were going through. Sarah wrote about the whispers, the shadows, and the feeling of being watched. She also mentioned the locket, saying that it had belonged to her daughter, who had disappeared on the train. As Emily read on, she discovered that Sarah had been trying to find a way to break the curse. She believed that the spirits were trapped on the train because of something that had happened long ago, and that they needed to be set free. Do you think this could be the key?" Emily asked Jack, showing him the diary. He nodded. "It's worth a try," he said. "We need to find out what happened and see if we can help the spirits move on." As they continued to explore the train, Emily and Jack began to notice a pattern. The whispers and shadows seemed to be centered around certain compartments, as if the spirits were drawn to specific places. One night, as they were investigating one of these compartments, they saw a ghostly figure standing in the corner. It was a young girl, her eyes wide with fear. Emily's heart ached for the child. "Who are you?" as she asked softly. The girl didn't speak, but she pointed to the locket in Emily's hand. Emily realized that this must be Sarah's daughter, the one who had disappeared all those years ago. "Are you trapped here?" Emily asked. The girl nodded, her eyes filled with sadness. We're going to help you," Emily promised. "We're going to find a way to set you free." The girl smiled, her ghostly form flickering like a candle in the wind. Then she vanished, leaving Emily and Jack alone in the compartment. "We need to find out what happened to her," Jack said. "Maybe if we can uncover the truth, we can help the spirits move on." Determined to uncover the truth, Emily and Jack began to dig deeper into the train's history. They searched through old records and newspaper clippings, piecing together the story of the Midnight Express. They discovered that the train had been built on cursed land, a site where a terrible tragedy had occurred many years ago. A group of settlers had been massacred by a rival clan, and their spirits had never found peace. The train, built on the site of their graves, had become a vessel for their restless souls. As Emily and Jack delved deeper, they found more clues about Sarah and her daughter. Sarah had been a passenger on the train when it was first launched, and she had tried to uncover the truth about the curse. But she had disappeared, along with her daughter, before she could find a way to break it. "We need to finish what she started," Emily said. "We need to find a way to set the spirits free." With the knowledge they had gathered, Emily and Jack devised a plan. They believed that if they could perform a ritual to honor the spirits and cleanse the train, they might be able to break the curse. They gathered the necessary supplies and prepared for the ritual. As they worked, the whispers grew louder, the shadows more insistent. It was as if the spirits knew what they were planning and were trying to stop them. Undeterred, Emily and Jack pressed on. They set up the ritual in the storage room, where they had found Sarah's diary. They lit candles and placed offerings of food and flowers, hoping to appease the spirits. As they began the ritual, the temperature in the room dropped, and the air grew thick with tension. The shadows seemed to close in around them, and the whispers became a cacophony of voices, all speaking at once. Emily and Jack held hands, their voices steady as they chanted the words they had found in the diary. The room seemed to pulse with energy, and the shadows writhed and twisted as if in pain. Suddenly, there was a blinding flash of light. Emily and Jack were thrown to the ground, and the room fell silent. When they looked up, the shadows were gone, and the air was clear. Relieved, Emily and Jack thought they had succeeded. But as they made their way back to their compartment, they realized that the train was still moving, and the sense of unease had not entirely lifted. They returned to the conductor's office, hoping for answers. The conductor was there, his eyes cold and empty. "You can't stop it," he said. "The curse is too strong. The spirits will never be free." Emily felt a surge of anger. "We have to try," she said. "We can't just give up." The conductor shook his head. "It's too late," he said. "They're coming for you." Suddenly, the whispers returned, louder than ever. The shadows reappeared, swirling around the room. Emily and Jack stood their ground, determined to fight. As the shadows closed in, Emily felt a strange sense of calm. She reached out and took Jack's hand, their fingers entwined. Together, they faced the darkness, their hearts filled with courage. In a final desperate act, Emily held up the locket, hoping it might have some power over the spirits. To her surprise, the shadows recoiled, as if in pain. The whispers grew louder, then faded to a faint murmur. Emily realized that the locket was the key. It held the spirit of Sarah's daughter, the one who had been lost. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer, hoping to set the spirit free. There was a blinding flash of light, and the shadows vanished. The train shuddered, then came to a halt. Emily and Jack stood in the silent cabin, their hearts pounding. As the first light of dawn broke through the windows, Emily and Jack realized that they had survived. The train was no longer haunted, and the spirits had been set free. They stepped off the train, their hearts filled with a sense of peace. The station was empty, but the air was fresh and clear, a stark contrast to the oppressive atmosphere they had endured. Emily looked at Jack, a smile spreading across her face. "We did it," as she said. "We broke the curse." Jack nodded, his eyes filled with relief. "We couldn't have done it without each other," he said. As they walked away from the train, Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She knew that she had faced her fears and come out stronger. The Midnight Express was just a train now, no longer a vessel for restless spirits. Emily and Jack knew that they would always remember this journey, the friends they had lost, and the courage they had found. They had faced the darkness and come out into the light, forever changed by their experience. Years later, the story of the Midnight Express became a legend, passed down through generations. People spoke of the haunted train and the brave souls who had faced the curse and set the spirits free. Emily and Jack went on with their lives, forever bound by the experience they had shared. They never forgot the lessons they had learned, the strength they had found in each other, and the courage to face the unknown. And so the tale of the Haunted Express lived on, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope, and that the human spirit can overcome any obstacle, no matter how insurmountable it may seem.